Welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. A special hello to our Ultimate Sports Radio Network listeners, USRN. Joe San Diego here, along with Kobe Lambeth from the podium finish, and we have Joshua Busch joining us to discuss NASCAR Cup Series at Texas Motor Speedway. We invite everyone to comment and share their questions with us right here on the air in the chat room. And a special thank you to our Patreon subscribers for keeping us on the air. Link to our Patreon page down below in the video comments. We first start with IndyCar, and today is October 16th. It was 10 years ago today, one of the saddest moments in professional motorsports occurred. At the season finale in Las Vegas, lap 11, a 15-car pileup occurred entering turn 1. One of the drivers involved was 33-year-old Dan Wheldon. Dan Wheldon had won the Indianapolis 500 4 months prior to that race and sadly succumbed to head injury sustained in that crash on lap 11. The rest of the race was called off. Dario Franchitti won the IndyCar Series championship. Today, several media outlets as well as channels online are documenting that traumatic day in motorsports. The rest of the race was called off, as I mentioned. Dan Wheldon, survived by his wife and two kids, who are currently in a racing development program. Kobe, Josh, what do you remember from that day? And now, 10 years later, how do you look back on it?
Joe, I'm 22 years old now. Back then, 10 years ago, I was 12 years old, and I'd only been watching racing for several years. At that point, I started watching racing in 2007. 2011 was really the first year I started seriously paying attention to IndyCar racing. I'd never seen any fatalities. I didn't truly understand the danger. Heck, I was liked entertaining racing. I didn't see the danger. I didn't think about bad stuff happening. And October 16, 2011 is a day that I'll never ever forget. It's a day that I think about every single year. On this day, I think about Dan Wheldon all day long, and the day we lost Dan, that was such a tragic day. It's one of those days where you remember exactly what you were doing. You remember every moment of that day. I remember I was eating spaghetti and garlic bread for dinner. I was getting excited because there was a lot of hype going into the race. I remember they were saying this is gonna be like NASCAR at Talladega, but in Indy cars, and knowing how exciting the races were at Talladega in the pack, I was really looking forward to this race. I'm thinking we're gonna see draft and a lot of lead changes, and it's just some incredible action. But I did read in the media about some concerns about the race, but being a young kid who didn't understand the danger, I just brushed it off. I was like, oh, we're probably not gonna see anything like that happen. It's just gonna be an incredible IndyCar race that looks like NASCAR at Talladega. Then we got to the race, saw a lot of great action very early on from the bit of the race that we actually got to see. And the real eerie thing was coming on to lap 11. ABC was on board with Dan Wheldon at the time. He was coming from the very back of the field, carving his way through the pack, and he was making some real progress. And then as Dan Wheldon is heading into turn one, well, about to enter turn one, we all see smoke, and then we see flames, cars flying in the air, and oh my goodness, it was just a huge, huge mess. And then looking at the aftermath, I'm thinking to myself, what just happened? But at that point, I'm thinking it just went wrong. Everything went terribly wrong, and I'm wondering how could anybody survive a crash like that? That was just so awful. And I actually could not finish the rest of my spaghetti dinner that day and garlic bread. I was just too upset. I could not continue to eat. I didn't eat anything else for the rest of that day. It upset me so bad. And then looking at all the scenes on the drivers, I saw some drivers had tears in their eyes. I saw Tony Kanaan all emotional, Dario Franchitti, Danica Patrick, a lot of others who were competing in that race. And then we got the official announcement that we had lost Dan Wheldon. And then when we got the announcement, my heart absolutely sank to the floor, heartbroken. I could not believe it. I at the point I knew what happened to Dale Earnhardt on the final lap of the 2001 Daytona 500, but personally, this was the first time as a young racing fan that I experienced death, and it hit hard. It hit really, really hard. I didn't know what to think at that point. The danger was real to me. I truly understood at that point what all those drivers do, all the sacrifices they make to put on a show for all the fans watching at home. Before, I did not understand that before Dan Weldon's tragic death, and then the things afterward when they did that salute. That when IndyCar decided to call off the race, I'll admit, I was crying during that time. It was so emotional, and then the drivers were crying in the cockpits as well. It was such an emotional scene, and hearing the bagpipes, the tribute to Dan Weldon, and then going through the crash scene, you can see all the skate marks through the turns. It just really hit hard that day, and overall, Dan Weldon's legacy is going to live on forever, especially through his young sons, Oliver and Sebastian. Yeah, I'm going to make a bold prediction right now, but I do think we'll see Sebastian and Oliver as they continue going through the Andretti Autosport Development Program. I think we'll see them on the road to Indy, and maybe we'll see them in the NTT IndyCar Series, and they can follow their father's footsteps. So really hoping to see Sebastian and Oliver Weldon do great things in the racing community for years to come.
That image we just had up as well of the Dan Weldon on the yard of bricks as well after winning the Indy 500 for the second time. That was one of the most get up out of your chair moments I've ever seen. It would, from a British standpoint as well, the opinion of IndyCar was it's American Formula One. Dan Weldon changed that massively because, yes, we had Dario Franchitti go over there and do fantastic, numerous titles, 500 wins, but Dan Weldon was really the key turning point. We all knew Dario Franchitti was coming to the end of his career, and we thought it was a one-hit wonder in terms of that fact. And then here we've got this young, good-looking, energetic British driver who's chosen an IndyCar route to go down. He won the 500 twice as well. And that last victory, he was clawing at it so much, but it took a mistake from another driver hitting the wall and the commentator going, oh, he's hit the wall, just like Alanson, all that. And then Dan Weldon is going to win the Indianapolis 500. I remember watching that race in 20 minutes. We're just going like, yes, jumping up, cheering as well, supporting the British drivers at that point as well from not commentating on it. Just like, yes, Britain has won, and it's Dan Weldon. He had this amazing capture over the British audience as well. It was shown live on Sky Sports as well at the time. And Sky really put their own feel to the shows and put them out live across the channel as well, promoted it. They did with NASCAR at the time as well. But I can remember that day as well, because going into that weekend in Las Vegas, it was the race for £1 million, wasn't it? You start at the back of the grid, and if you win the race, you get £1 million. Dan was the only driver to sign up for that, and he started at the back of the field, and then he raced his way up throughout the order. And as you said, Kobe, as well, that lap right before the crash, in fact, even when the crash was happening, we were on board with Dan as well. And it's like when we were on board with Senna when he crashed in 94 as well. You look back at that footage now and you get the chills as well. It's you know what's going to happen. And it is absolutely heartbreaking. That race as well at Las Vegas, it was just after the Korean Grand Prix of Formula One. And that, at the time, Formula One aired on the BBC, which is a free-to-air public network. The BBC themselves advertised the IndyCar race because Dario Franchitti was going for the title and Dan Weldon was going for the £1 million from the back of the field. So, and that at the time, BBC advertising a Sky program was just unheard of. That's how much power Dan had over the entire of the British public. Watching that crash back, as I do often, and I do that to remind myself that when accidents happen, you can never understand why. To this day, you look back at it and you think, well, how did that happen? How did he launch over the back of willpower? How did the car catch fire? How on earth did all of that happen? Your brain can't compute. It's unbelievable. The emotion, the loss, it's just, you never, ever get over it. And it's akin to you idolize these drivers. You respect them so much. And to see one of them lose their life in the pursuit of speed, you just can't comprehend why they risk their life for that feeling to this day as well. And I know moving away, it was the start of a horrible, horrible week, because a week later we had the Marco Simoncelli accident at Sepang in MotoGP as well. And you get that's where it all started coming in as well. They all come in threes as well. That's because sadly we lost another rider in a British class that week as well. And ever since then, in the motorsport community, if sadly there is a fatality, that's why we all get fear, because history has shown us they come in threes. And it's just the impact of that is felt not only through IndyCar, it's felt throughout the entire motorsport family. It is all one family. And what I always love is, as you said, Kobe, as well, they cancelled the race. They all lined up along the edge of pit road on the grass as well. And every team member there from every race organization was just stood there, either crying or holding back the tears or holding somebody else up. And the drivers slowly going around the track for 5 laps doing a salute. One of the greatest honors I've ever, one of the greatest sporting gestures I've ever seen. And for me, I always remember the next race, the DW12 chassis of IndyCar, that first race at St. Petersburg. And who won it? Helio Castroneves. And he got up, Spider-Man once again, banging on Dan Weldon Drive, saying, that one's for you, buddy. And it's just emotional thinking back to it. And I always remember what the commentator said at the end of it as well. It was his sign-off of "Till we meet again." And he always says, and I'll credit back, people always ask me at the end of each broadcast, why do I say "till we meet again"? Because goodbye is so final. That is what always hits you. The words that echo back through time of drivers, all the high moments of Dan Weldon has won the Indy 500 to goodbye, Dan Weldon. You can't compute either of them. And 10 years on, you still can't.
When Marty Reed said goodbye, Dan Weldon, that was just I was really emotional. I had seen drivers like Greg Moore pass away on live television, Dale Earnhardt Sr. Dan Weldon, it just seemed to have really hit hard, especially everything he went through. He had a ride with Chip Ganassi. He lost a ride, was out of the season, did the Indy 500, a miraculous win when J.R. Hildebrand crashed. Looked like everything was going really good. He was going to be with Andretti, with GoDaddy. Comes to this race, and then that crash, that was one of the most ugliest crashes I've ever seen in my life. Cars flying, flames. When the cars came around the next lap during the caution, you just saw that sea of debris all over the place. It just looked like something out of some sort of movie where they just exaggerate the carnage. You have cars on fire on the racetrack still. And then the red flag came. And this was the first time I could recall where the internet, a lot of people had access to it. So you were hearing rumors online. And then the news came out. We've lost Dan Weldon. And it just really hit so hard and sad. And those 5-lap tributes the drivers did, great tribute. But just seeing Dario Franchitti, Altieri Die, Danica Patrick, it was just something where it's a day I'll never forget. His legacy with the chassis, what he did at the Indy 500 will always live on, of course, with his kids racing, getting into racing. We can't wait to see them on the track, especially if they get onto Indy lights and maybe someday IndyCar. It was definitely a traumatic day that a lot of us will never forget. And we encourage everyone to share what they remember from that day with us because we all went through it together. And even if you didn't, share with us what's your favorite Dan Weldon stories because we know one of the things afterwards, a lot of drivers started sharing their stories of their favorite Dan Weldon memories. And there's a lot to discuss. And traumatic days like that, of course, are never easy to deal with. It's a dark reminder of the dangers in sports, and the work is never done to improve the safety of motorsports. This week, NASCAR they tested their next gen car for 2022, which will incorporate more safety features and updated technologies. Very rare for testing in the NASCAR Cup Series level, especially with everything going on with the pandemic. I think this year, everyone, if they could, they would try to test at Texas or Kansas, especially the playoff drivers this year. Everyone has one driver standing their way of winning a championship and a race this weekend. That's Kyle Larson, seventh win this last weekend at the Roval, eight if you count his win at Texas Motor Speedway in the All-Star Race. The closest competition looks like it might be Denny Hamlin. Denny has been playing the consistency card all season long. Southern 500 Darlington won to advance in the round of 12. Las Vegas won to advance in the round of 8. And last race weekend, he was the only driver not worried about the points and trying to advance. Would a win by Denny Hamlin at Texas make him the favorite in the championship four?
I'm actually going to say no. I still think the overwhelming favorite to win this championship is the driver to number 5, Hendrick Cars Chevrolet, HendrickCars.com Chevrolet, and that is Kyle Larson. I think if Kyle Larson doesn't win this championship, it would be a massive shame for him because he's been the most dominant driver all season. Denny Hamlin, although Hamlin doesn't have the amount of wins as Kyle Larson, he's right up there with him. Hamlin's been strongly consistent all throughout the year. I do think a win at Texas or Kansas or at Martinsville would give him a lot of momentum heading into the championship four. I still think even if he doesn't win a race in the round of 8, I still think we'll see Hamlin in the championship four. But all I see is winning this round doing him is from momentum. I still think Kyle Larson is the overall favorite.
Now, hang on. I would agree in principle that Kyle Larson is going to be the predictable winner, but what about Martin Truex Jr.? He's only, 36 points behind. He's 1 point behind Denny Hamlin at the moment as well. But I really do think Martin Truex Jr. could be a big surprise. I mean, yeah, like the Roval didn't really work out, started 5th, ended 29th, but he won at Richmond. He's won 4 times so far this year as well. It's not that much behind, and he's only 3rd in the title. My pick could still go Truex Jr., and I said that quite a while ago as well. And I think we've got a comment coming through as well from Ben. It says, I'll never forget Dan's victory at the Indy in 2011. My heart still hurts for Hildebrand, but I'm so glad he got to enjoy that moment with his family. Absolutely, Ben as well. And that, just touching on Dan Weldon as well for just a second as well, once again, I think that's one of our favourite sports images of all time, isn't it? When he drank the milk. I think that was one of the most unique drinkers of the milk I think I've ever seen. And, the long hair as well. I can't imagine the milk smelt nice after. Or was it racing sweat, the long hair with the product in as well, and then throwing in dairy? I don't think it was very nice, but it's one of the scenes we like to see.
Yeah, you're probably not a nice smell there, but really glad Dan got to enjoy that special moment with his family, and I'm sure his boys Oliver and Sebastian have watched that moment over and over again on YouTube. And the point you're making about Jr. Josh is really interesting because Martin Truex Jr. he hasn't been as flashy this season as Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin in terms of performance, but with the playoff format, you get hot at the right time, you can go out there win the championship. All Martin Truex Jr. has to do is to get into the championship four, going into Phoenix, and then make something happen there. He can go out there and steal the championship from Denny Hamlin. And Kyle Larson, speaking of Denny Hamlin, enters Texas second on the playoff grid. Third is teammate MTJ. Both drivers have made it to the championship four in past years, but one driver who's never made it to the championship four is YRB. Ryan Blaney, and many anticipate him being one of the favorites to win at Texas. He usually runs really well here, one of his best tracks. And Blaney has 3 wins, all 3 Team Penske Fords. Those are the only 4 teams left in the playoffs. So, in your opinion, what's the biggest barrier standing in Ryan Blaney's way of getting into the championship four for the first time?
Well, just like I put the case forward for Martin Truex Jr., he's not actually that far behind. 41 points to go before we get into the round of 8 as well. Phoenix going to be a key race for him as well. But consistency would be my a problem on the board as well. Let's go back. Charlotte started 6th, finished 9th. Drop back. Further back, Talladega started 4th, 15th. Las Vegas started 2nd, finished 5th. Okay, not too much of a drop off in a NASCAR race at Las Vegas, but still, where's the consistency? His starting position is higher than his finishing position. He's not converting these into wins enough. He's getting some points, but he's losing too much. He needs to be in the top 5 nearly every single race weekend to stand a chance at getting the title. But the top 4, doable. Title, no.
When it comes to Ryan Blaney and his performance, I feel they're really hit or miss, and it goes back to that inconsistency as you talked about. Some race weekends, it seems like they show up, they're up there fighting for the win. And then it's just some race weekends, they're just second half of the top 10, lucky break, they get up a little higher, or unlucky break, and they're mid-pack. I just don't see that team really being at the caliber to get in the championship for. Texas is a racetrack he's done good at before. I think this is his best bet to try to get in that championship for, but I think it's going to come down to the team having a perfect race, just pretty much taking advantage of every opportunity they get, not making a mistake, and getting that win.
Yeah, you both bring up some excellent points. Consistency is going to be key for that number 12 team. I also agree with what you said, Joe. Texas is probably his best chance to win since he typically runs really well here. And it's surprising to me that we have all 3 Team Penske Fords in the Championship 8, considering what the drivers have been saying all season about their equipment, that the equipment isn't on par with Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing. And for a Team Penske Ford to make the Championship 4, considering all of the troubles they say they've been having with their cars this year, it would be a big win for the organization for Blaney, Keselowski, or Logano to make it into that championship 4. I think it could potentially be an uphill battle for Blaney to get in because, like you were saying, it's like hit or miss, hot or cold on certain weekends. And I'm sure Ryan Blaney hopes that the next 3 weekends at Texas, Kansas, Martinsville, that he's going to ride a hot streak heading into Phoenix, and his other teammates, Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski, both below the cut line, 7th and 8th place, facing more of an uphill climb, but not by much. Then Chase Elliott in 6th and Kyle Busch in 5th. And speaking of Chase Elliott, he survived that chaotic Roval race at Charlotte. He was sent into the wall by Kevin Harvick, didn't return, and then Harvick had an error into turn 1. It seemed like Elliott really rattled his case there, and in the turn formerly known as the turn, which ended Kevin Harvick's day. And this week, NASCAR didn't really seem like they were happy with what they saw, so they called both teams because they don't want bad blood lingering on into the future between Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick. And it really seems like NASCAR is affirming that this feud is over between the two, and maybe they want to prevent another incident, what we saw several years ago between Joey Logano and Matt Kenseth at Martinsville. Joe, do you think it's necessary for NASCAR to step in, or is this too soon?
I believe this is necessary, especially what we saw at the Roval. I think a lot of people anticipated Kevin Harvick would try to get some payback on Chase Elliott at the Roval. But a lot of folks anticipate it'll be a bump near the end of the race or during the last lap, try to get him out of the way or even just spin him around. We had just started, essentially, we're not even towards the end of the race, and Kevin Harvick sends Chase Elliott to the wall, effectively destroying the back end of that car, taking away any shot at a win. Now, yes, I think a lot of folks did anticipate the feud was over since Chase Elliott finished the race and Kevin Harvick, through a mistake, not from Chase Elliott retaliating, but just a mistake, an error that he made, getting in the wall. I think a lot of people anticipated it was over. But we got to look back at what Harvick has done in the past. We've known he has wrecked Kyle Busch at Homestead when Kyle Busch was racing him hard. Talladega, 2015, coming to that One green and white checker flag attempt. Very controversial move. Did he intentionally try to wreck Trevor Bayne and cause that big crash to prevent him from being eliminated? Last thing NASCAR wants is a driver out of the playoffs to affect the championship, like what Matt Kenseth did to Logano. Logano had done 3 wins in a row, going for a fourth. Didn't get it at Martinsville because of Kenseth, and then a subpar Texas, nothing at Phoenix, didn't make it to Homestead. And a lot of folks were saying he should have been in Homestead that year. So really, I think this is NASCAR doing the right call, stepping in and saying, hey, we want the drivers to determine the championship on the track. We don't want to see, essentially, a driver not in the playoffs try to do something where it's going to essentially affect the outcome, especially similar to what we saw with Logano and Matt Kenseth.
And you mentioned some controversial moments in Kevin Harvick's career, and you forgot to mention what happened just last year at Martinsville in the cutoff race before the championship 4. Harvick was struggling, and then Kyle Busch was right ahead of him, and Harvick needed just one more point to get in, so he intentionally wrecked Kyle Busch. But instead of just sending Kyle Busch around, Harvick crashed himself too, and ended up losing a lot more points. So Kevin Harvick shows that he doesn't care. He's out there to win and go for the championship. So I do think that it's a good idea for NASCAR to step in here to make sure that the feud is over. I think the feud should be over. I think if we see anything else to happen out of there, I think there should potentially be fines. And you even have to think about suspensions. Because remember, Matt Kenseth got suspended for a couple of races after intentionally wrecking Joey Logano at Martinsville. So I think Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, they just need to mind their P's and Q's and move on from this. That Chase Elliott doesn't need to worry about the 4 going forward. He's still in the championship hunt. He has a lot more to lose than to gain. So Chase Elliott needs to just put that rivalry behind him and focus on trying to go back to back in the NASCAR Cup Series and try to get that championship. For Kevin Harvick, try to finish the season strong and get some momentum going into next year. There's really no point for Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott to continue this feud. And NASCAR is very unique because of the hard physical racing and retaliation we see sometimes on the track. Josh, we know you're based in the United Kingdom, mostly covering European-style racing, where we see less beating and banging and on-track retaliation, a lot of good etiquette over there. Do you find NASCAR's brand of racing more aggressive or competitive compared to the racing series in the UK?
Oh, yeah. It's fantastic. I mean, I was listening to what Joe was saying as well about everybody was anticipating targeted fight backs. You don't get that in Formula One. All right, let's not count Hamilton and Verstappen. They crash a lot, but it's not deliberate when they do it, as far as we know. But to have drivers actively fighting with each other and then going down at the end of the race in pit road and swinging at each other, giving him a 41, as Murray Walker would put it as well, you don't get that. And I think that's fantastic to see NASCAR have it. I mean, yes, I know it comes with repercussions as well for doing that, but I cannot remember in 1988 when Prost and Senna came together, the back of the McLaren garage, they were punching each other, and Ron Dennis was strangling Alain Prost with some headphone wires, and Ayrton Senna had Jean-Marie Balest in a headlock as well, just punching his head, saying, why did you disqualify me? I don't remember that happening, whereas it could happen in NASCAR, and that's what we like to see. So definitely, from a Brit's point of view here in the UK, the NASCAR level of aggression is part of the excitement because you get wheel-to-wheel racing, you get bump drafting with a little bit more of aggression and vengeance, and then you get people actively pushing them out. And that's one part of the Disney Pixar Cars film that everybody can agree with when Chick hit the King, didn't he? Hit the King at the last lap and says, I'm not coming behind you again, old man. And off he went into the grass. That's exactly what happens. And I love it every time. Even the commentators get excited. I remember Junior saying, let's see if they're going to fight. They're going to fight. Brilliant. I love it. It's fantastic. And definitely when that happens, you get the popcorn and you get the beers and you just sit back and go, fight time. It's better than pay-per-view boxing.
Yeah, NASCAR definitely all about the entertainment and all the drama that and storylines that follow. Yeah, hear really crazy action we see from time to time in NASCAR. What we saw at the Roval last weekend between Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick. That's what I like to call peak NASCAR right there. And we definitely like to hear from all of the viewers out there in the comments. What do you think of on-track retaliations, especially when it occurs during the playoffs? And we'll have more NASCAR coverage later in the program. But here's a quick World Rally Championship update. The World Rally Championship Rally de Catalunya is underway. And at the end of day one, Thierry Neuville was ahead of Elfyn Evans and Sebastian Ogier. Today, Neuville won every stage except stage 12, which went to Sebastian Ogier. Stage 13, all that's left today. And then tomorrow we have 4 more stages. And it looks like the championship is going to be decided at Rally Monza, the final round of the 2021 World Rally Championship season. Joe, at this point, if they entered the final race with 21 points between them, how likely is it that we could see the points lead change in the last round?
Really, at this level, unless Sebastian Ogier goes out and not finish in the top 10 or score any points at all, you need to essentially see Evans try to go out there and get the win. Very pretty much the same point system, 25 points for a win. So Formula One, you take that into account, their point system. That's what World Rally Championship does. So really, OJ, he just needs to make sure he scores points at 21 points. Really, he could just finish in the points, get that championship. But still, we saw last year at Monza, it's very similar layout where OJ came in second in the points. Point leader came in, lost it, and OJ got that championship. So anything can happen when it comes to World Rally Championship. Of course, we still have another day with more stages tomorrow, and we'll recap that as well as NASCAR tomorrow on our Grid Live wrap up. And going back to NASCAR, of course, in NASCAR, their points ballot is annually guaranteed to come down to the last race. We haven't talked about two drivers too much. I know, Josh, you mentioned Martin Truex Jr., but the other driver we haven't really talked about a lot, Kyle Busch. Last year, Kyle Busch won on Wednesday when this race was postponed on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday due to weather. He came out, took the race win. Martin Truex Jr., no wins yet at Texas Motor Speedway, but he definitely has the potential of doing that, especially with the Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas looking good. Starting with you, Josh, do you feel both or one of these drivers are potentially being overlooked, not only for the win, but the championship as well?
Earlier on in the show, I made my case for Martin Truex Jr. I suppose I should then be fair, make my case for Kyle Busch as well. He's suffering with similar fates that we've talked about with other NASCAR drivers so far this season as well. Inconsistency as well. Just looking back as well, Charlotte, he had an improvement, started 9th, finishing 4th, but started 2nd at Talladega, finished down in 27th place out of the race as well. This is not great news for Kyle Busch as well. He's 5th in the standings, 42 behind. So that's 1 point behind Truex on the board. But it's still it's a bit impossible, isn't it, at the moment for Kyle Busch? I reckon he'll have to fight every race tooth and claw. We know he can do it, but has he got the car underneath him to do it? I don't think he does. So I'm putting my money on the most overlooked and underappreciated driver is definitely going to be Martin Truex Jr. And I can see him possibly, if he has a good run, snatching this title away. I know Kobe's probably going to disagree with me on that one because he's made his case for Kyle Larson.
Yeah, when we're talking about potential drivers who are being overlooked, I think if your name isn't Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin, then you're definitely being overlooked. And I think right now those two are definitely the favorites for the championship, as I've already said. But others like Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, everybody else you can see right there on the screen who are left in the playoffs in the round of 8. I think we can say all of those drivers are being overlooked because of the type of season Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin's having. And it would not surprise me if we see drivers not named Larson or Hamlin go to victory lane in the next 3 weeks.
Now, a group of drivers that are being overlooked annually during the playoffs are the drivers not in the playoffs. Of course, they don't really win when it comes to it. The playoff drivers, they just seem to find that other level where they just seem to step up their performance. And we've seen this year, Bubba Wallace, non-playoff driver, win at Talladega. last couple of race weekends, we saw William Byron really bring the pressure on. If it wasn't for that mistake, possibly he could have won at the Roval. Of course, that caution also changed everything. Alex Bowman, multiple wins this year, now in the playoffs. Kevin Harvick, of course, got a lot of attention with Chase Elliott and Christopher Bell. They are all out of the playoffs. Tyler Reddick, though, he got out early, but he just seems to be running really well at Texas. Going to be really interesting to see. He finished second place to Austin Dillon a few years ago. Kobe, which non-playoff driver do you believe has the best chance of winning at Texas Motor Speedway?
This might surprise you, but I'm actually going to say Tyler Reddick. That number 8 team at RCR really hitting on all cylinders lately, and their chemistry really seems to be building strong coming to the end of the 2021 season. And if they can have runs like they did last week at the Roval for the remaining races, I think heading into 2022 that they can potentially improve upon their program, and Tyler Reddick can finally get that first career NASCAR Cup Series victory, and maybe he could get that by the end of this year. I know he's run really well at Kansas, which we're going to be going to in the following week in the past. So I definitely think Tyler Reddick and RCR is in the best position to potentially play spoiler and be a non-playoff driver to win a race. Or I could even say Alex Bowman. A lot of Alex Bowman's wins have just come out of the blue and so randomly. And since he's out of the playoffs now, why not have Alex Bowman just randomly win at Texas this weekend?
Yeah, they do come out of the blue as well, don't they? I'm going Christopher Bell, mainly because he's won twice this season, one in the Cup Series, one in the Xfinity Series as well. His last win in the Xfinity, one at Daytona on the road course as well, but 10th in the standings as well. He's had a good run of races. Second, sorry, I've got one wrong list now at the moment as well. 8th last time out at the Roval as well, starting 4th. So he dropped back, but he's always up there, isn't he? Even the commentators seem to like him, especially on Fox as well. Christopher Bell, just one of these upcoming drivers that could do quite well. He's standing P11, as you can see on your screens there on the race later on as well. I've just got this pick that he could be a factor in the last couple of races as sort of like ending the season on a high, which is what we sort of have to put up with these drivers who aren't in the very controversial playoff format.
And you mentioned it is a controversial playoff format. Some fans really love it. Some believe it's not best for NASCAR. Question for everyone, starting with you, essentially, when it comes to playoff drivers, if a non-playoff driver was to win this race, everybody will have to wait till Kansas to try to click their ticket to advance in Championship 4. Which driver in the playoffs would benefit the most if a non-playoff driver wins the race? Starting with you, Josh.
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I don't think I'm in the best position to say that, because I'm not as heavily involved in NASCAR as you are as well. And it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because so many races that I watch of NASCAR, we see drivers who are unexpected winners as well. So I haven't got a complete flurry as well. Let me get my notes up that I have at the side of the box here. I'm going to make a bold prediction. I'm going Bell. I'm sticking with my guns. Bell. Over to you, Kobe. That's very brave of me.
As we're looking at drivers in the playoffs who benefit the most for what a non-playoff driver will. I think right there, the drivers at the top, the most dominant drivers of the season, I've been talking about all program long, Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, because if a non-playoff driver wins, they just gives them more opportunities to point their way in if something goes terribly wrong. So if for some crazy reason, if we don't see any drivers below the current cut line win in advance into the Championship 4, and if Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin have something go wrong in this round, I think that could potentially help those drivers secure a spot in the Championship 4.
Yeah, I made a slight mistake on that question. Bell would be the driver I would put in the situation who would do the least damage to the top 4 in that championship mathematically. And I had to look at the stats to work it out quickly. but Bell being back in 10th place as well would do the least damage to the whole top four. In terms of, well, the top four who would be least affected by that, that would be Larson as well, because I agree with you, Kobe, he's so far up at the top. But throw in Martin Truex Jr. in there as well. I seem to be going on about him a lot today, but he would actually benefit a lot if a non-driver won, because he keeps that points gap the same between the two as it gets closer on into the end of the season. So a bit like the Hamilton-Verstappen situation we've got going on right now, where we had no points in Monza, but coming into the following races as well in Turkey and Russia, Verstappen was able to get the better on with the grid penalty and finish in second, whereas Hamilton struggled throughout the race as well and finished down the order and scored less points. So it's that sort of cat and mouse game. The fewer sweets you take away from the end of the line, the fewer or more the rats have to throw. I've lost my way with that one.
I mean, definitely when it comes to the playoffs, Christopher Bell, he could go out and get the win. One of the drivers I think would benefit the most has to be Brad Keselowski, especially if Larson has a bad race. I think that's something where it's going to be really interesting. With that said, we've done this at every round, but this time instead of who's for the 4 out, who's the 4 in the championship? Starting with you, Kobe, which 4 drivers make it in the championship 4?
Well, for starters, I think Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin are definitely going to be locked unless something really crazy happens in this round. And knowing how unpredictable NASCAR can be, something might happen and we might not see Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin make it into the championship 4. And if we get really crazy, wouldn't it be something we get to Phoenix and neither driver makes it to the championship 4 after the season that they had? Remember last year, Kevin Harvick had a really dominant season, and it all went wrong after that Texas race. I know I've alluded to that all year long on this program, talking about how Kevin Harvick and that 14 weren't the same after Texas last fall, and we thought that he was potentially the most deserving champion. It didn't happen for him, so we'll have to wait and see how that works out for Larson. Hamlin, I think the 3rd driver in the championship 4 is going to be the defending champion, Chase Elliott. He'll have another opportunity to go back to back and become a 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. And the 4th driver, this is a tough one, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Brad Keselowski is going to make the championship 4, and he's going to give the captain, Roger Penske, one final time for them to score a championship together before he moves on to the next chapter in his career as an owner driver for Roush Fenway Racing. So I think Brad Keselowski going to run out of championship 4, and he typically runs well at Phoenix on the high horsepower, low downforce flat track. So maybe Brad Keselowski, if he gets to Phoenix, he can play spoiler in this championship fight.
I think it'll be in this order: Larson, then we'll go Truex, then we'll go Hamlin, then we'll go Elliott. In those orders, that will be the top 4 going in. I sense major disturbance coming in because championship time, pressures get up there, mistakes happen. Let's get those into the top 4 locked out.
I'm going to go with Hamlin, Larson, Truex, and Chase Elliott. I'm going to see essentially the 2 Gibbs, 2 Hendrick Motorsports. There won't be any Penske's in the championship 4. That's my prediction. We encourage everyone to share their predictions as well. And of course, it's time for our favorite game. We don't have Adam, but we have Josh here for Pick a Winner.
Yes, it's time to roll the dice once again and make a bold prediction for Pick a Winner. Reminder, it's triple points if you're outside the top 10. And if you get your first correct guess, you score immediately the 3 points. You can see Joe's leading at the moment on 31, Adam's on 28, Kobe's on 26, Matt's on 21, Ben's on 20, I'm on 5, Joe P's on 3, Tom Reed's on 3 as well, Andrew's on 3, and Lads Basketball as well on 3. That's rounding out the top 10. And with only one race event this weekend as well that we play this with, it's the NASCAR Pick a Winner. I'll start off because we haven't got Adam with us this weekend, and I'm going to go with the fact that even though I've been saying him all race long, it's not going to be Martin Truex Jr. in my pick. I'm going to go with Kyle Larson to win tomorrow from pole position. Over to you, Kobe.
Yes, and we'll see if we're going to make this unanimous today, because I'm also going with the same bet, Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson seemed like he's the favorite to win every week. He ran extremely well in the All-Star race earlier this year at Texas, so I think it would not be a surprise to see Young Money win back-to-back at the Roval last week and at Texas Motor Speedway tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, and we can't hear from Joe at the moment, so I'll throw it back over to Joe. Who's your pick a winner for NASCAR?
When it comes to this race weekend, it's going to be unanimous because even Adam on Wednesday shared it. It's going to be Kyle Larson. Only way Kyle Larson is not going to win this race. The team beat themselves with a mistake. It gets caught up in somebody else's mistake on the track, or a poorly timed caution and pit strategy where they might be the one that pit and everyone else stays out. That's the only way Kyle Larson is not going to win at Texas.
And if you want to play the game, use the hashtag #PickAWinner across all social media platforms as well, and get in touch with us and let us know who you think is going to be on top in NASCAR.
Yeah, or Kyle Larson's team could just completely miss the setup, which would be very uncharacteristic for this organization, and it would be a huge mistake at this late in the game. So definitely be sure to share your pick a winner. Tell us who you think is gonna win the NASCAR Cup Series race tomorrow at Texas Motor Speedway. And with that said, fortunately, we're out of time for today. So please be sure to like and subscribe to GRIDnet. We're here on YouTube. You can follow us all across social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We're on it. And we encourage you to visit our Patreon page. Thank you to Colin, Mark, Michelle, and Robin for investing in GRIDnet, keeping us on the air long term. Also, check out Paw Bless for dog leashes, clothing, and accessories for dogs of all sizes. Remember, 10% of your purchase goes towards helping homeless, sick, and rescued dogs. Also, visit Public.com, known as the stock market social media home. A link below and referral code will give you $5 to invest immediately. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools how to invest in the stock market. Tomorrow we'll be back on the air 90 minutes after the Cup race at Texas for a Grid Live wrap up, and we might have some more friends joining us as well. For Josh Birch and Joe San Diego, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching and enjoy the race.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on Public.com.